Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to OnLocation here. Today I am at Kroger Hills State Reserve. This is a conservation area that's owned and maintained by the Great Parks of Hamilton County. And this is actually my second visit. I did a scouting visit in a different season here. I think it was in spring. And, it's a very cool place, very kind of open and spacious with all these old growth trees mixed in with all this grassland and prairie habitat that really dominates the entire preserve here. And so we're going to be out here for the morning. It's now officially fall, which is pretty cool. And so we're going to be really checking out, just all the different trees and the autumn foliage that we can find here, as people call it, leaf peeping. And we're going to see if we can get some images here. In my initial scouting visit, like I said, even though it was a different season, I really noticed how there's just these, I guess they're called the Kroger Hills. You can see right behind me here that are going to be really great, I think, for this time of year. We're probably just about a week and a half, 2 weeks away, maybe from peak fall foliage here. But I'm going to be just checking it out for the day and just see if I can get some of the colors as they are now and, see if I can get some images that way. I'm going to be probably doing a lot of medium telephoto stuff is my plan. I'm not too sure about anything else with the wide angle. As you can see, it's very overcast as it is right now just after sunrise. And I don't think it's going to be changing much for the day here. I think it's just going to be cloudy simply all day. But we're going to make it work. I think it'll be nice. And to just get some nice kind of moody almost and overcast light on this kind of fairly brisk and cold autumn morning here. Now this is kind of a lesser known place. I'm assuming the locals probably know more about it. But this preserve here is actually has two parking lots, technically speaking. No proper parking for the reserve itself, but there's at both ends there's Avoca Trailhead, which is also owned by the Great Parks of Hamilton County. You can park there and then just walk along the bike path. I think it's about less than half a mile or so on the bike path, and then it connects directly to Kroger Hills here. Or you could park on the other end at a place called Drackett Field, which is what I did for this particular morning here, just to see how it is basically. And this is a much more immediate entrance into the reserve here, as I found out with this visit. So the trails, like I said, they connect between the two, and the whole reserve is in between these two spots. And I guess you just have options at least, however you want to park or where you want to. But it's nice to have those options because there's nothing else that's really immediately at the reserve itself. So like I said, for habitats here, it has old growth forest, it has a restored prairie and 80 acres of grassland habitat, which of course nowadays is very important and essential to have grassland habitat. That's one of our most declining ecosystems in North America, and it's really essential. And as I can hear for the morning here, there's tons of goldfinches and sparrows and, other sparrows like towhees. And in the summer and spring months, you get a lot of indigo buntings here as well. So there's a lot of grassland and kind of these more prairie type birds that you may find here. I even just heard some white-throated sparrows over here calling their Canada song. But in total, the reserve is about 217 acres. The trail is there's really just one dominant and primary trail. And so other than that, there's nothing too much else going on here. Some Canada geese up here. I don't know if I'm aimed at it right, but yeah, this is a fairly small reserve. It's mainly just, like I said, maintained as a conservation area. And it's just situated along the Little Miami River here and the hillsides of the Indian Hill neighborhood in Cincinnati. And so we're going to be checking it out for the day, and I'm going to go ahead and get started here. But so far it's been a nice, calm, pretty peaceful morning besides all the traffic behind me here. And then the bike path is actually behind me here, so you may hear some cyclists that are talking amongst each other as they roll on by. So far I've been just checking out, got some dried ironweed, kind of a typical fall. In the spring, summer months it gets to be, it's right here, gets these purple flowers and everything, but now that's kind of this more duller tan or beige color here in autumn. And then over here I noticed there is a deer trail that's kind of meanders through, or it could be, I guess, a person doing it, but it looks to me like it's a deer trail. I can even see how it kind of like zigzags back all the way over there. So it's just pretty interesting within about a month or so, just seeing, feels like practically overnight though, that all these different plants and stuff have just been altered, whether it's just their kind of like life cycle or, you know, phase of the year. And just to see them all change colors and all the appearances just be warped, or you know, the appearance of the entire landscape here, which I find kind of fascinating. And then just certain leaves of plants, how often, or excuse me, how soon they change colors, like this kind of thorny plant here. Not too sure what it is, but just gets these very vibrant maroon kind of leaves. You can see it down here as well. But yeah, just very, very interesting. And then even got some of the goldenrods here, which is a common kind of late summer plant. So yeah, you can just see it's kind of like turning. It used to be a vibrant yellow, but now it's really just kind of matching more of the landscape and becoming more of a more muted colors for this this habitat here. Alright, so I settled upon my first composition here. I opted to take the northern side of Kroger Hills here, and I actually found this small little, I guess you call it sapling or whatever, of this American sycamore right here. A very small little tree here on the edge of the grassland here, and at least I think it's a sycamore based on the leaves, but usually you don't see them this small, because usually they're just this giant towering tree around and whatnot. But it's nice with these kind of vibrant leaves of, you know, the greens, the yellows, and the reds, just kind of all mixed, almost like in a gradient on some of the leaves in particular. And then they're all just very wet and dew dropped from the morning, in the morning dew and all that kind of stuff. So as you can see, it's just a little bit taller than I am, but I thought this would be a nice little image here to take with my 70-200 medium telephoto lens that I have situated over here on the tripod. And so let's talk settings here. Nothing too crazy, no filters or anything. I did opt for a vertical composition just because it would, of course, accentuate and elongate the tree itself. Naturally speaking, I feel like that would just make the most sense with this. And then for settings, I did ISO 800 because it is kind of overcast and dark out, and I wanted to really increase my shutter speed. I went with ISO 800. And then I did an aperture of f9 to really just get all of the tree in focus, really. And then shutter speed did 1/80th of a second, which seems to be just fast enough if I time it up just right with the kind of mild breeze that's coming through. And it would, of course, even the littlest bit of wind would kind of sway and push around these trees. So the nice thing about doing a medium telephoto perspective like I am with this focal length and this lens is that it really helps to, with telephoto lenses, to compress the distance in between the foreground, midground, and background. So really with just this tree being front and center and really just encompassing the entire frame here, I found it worked out really nice to kind of drop out the background and have it be this nice kind of blurred dark greens, of course, with the tree line way in the background, as you can see down here. So that was really cool to get that, I guess, that perspective. And I really cropped in pretty tight. My focal length was about 100 millimeters on the 70-200 lens, which, you know, being in the middle range of this telephoto lens, really helped to isolate the entire tree, and also just allowed the whole thing to just completely envelop the whole entire frame. So there's no distractions, and minimized all of that kind of stuff, and anything that's, of course, the surrounding foliage, like the goldenrods and, you know, the teasel and stuff that I can see around surrounding the tree itself, you know, just kind of drops out a lot more because it's just front and center and focus on that sycamore tree there, and of course the colors of the leaves and everything. So I thought it worked out pretty well. You know, it's kind of a nice little, I guess, like portrait of the tree, you could say, and I think with doing this telephoto kind of really helped to isolate it a lot better. And then just even with composing and cropping it out tightly, you know, cropping it out in the frame, I'm saying, before I take the image, I even eliminated some of the sky above, because if I introduce the horizon and the sky into the image, even just the littlest bit in kind of like a sliver at the top of the frame, or the corners or whatever, that would just introduce way too much bright spots. I would overblow the highlights probably, and without having the bracket, or lower the exposure from the settings I chose. And just even with that, our eyes are drawn to the brightest part of the image, and so I feel like just including the sky would not add much anyways, regardless of the subject I'm shooting here. But also just it would make people's eyes kind of detract from the tree and the focus of the subject, literally the focus. And so they would just notice this bright spot that would probably be overexposed at the top of the sky there. Anyways, that's enough talking for me for this subject. Nice way to break the ice. So far it's been a pretty slow morning. Nice and peaceful though, of course. You're out in nature and everything. But in terms of images, this is the first thing that I saw that kind of like caught my eye, and I feel like worked out pretty well. And so hopefully I'll get maybe one or two more decent images here. But just with it being such a cloudy day, and the foliage is not quite as vibrant, and it's vibrant in spots. It looks colorful in areas like this sycamore tree here in the leaves, but just overall it's still pretty green, even with it being mid-October here. And most of the colors just turn into this dark mustard kind of yellow that kind of looks more dirgy and brown, and not the most pleasing depending on what you're trying to capture or go after. Alright, so and for my next photo here, just a little bit further down the trail here on the same north side of the reserve here, I'm doing some dried up ironweed, which is a herbaceous plant, a wildflower. Like I said earlier, that's pretty common. You see it in the spring and summer with these vibrant, I keep saying vibrant today, very colorful, kind of violet purple hues. Basically where it's this lighter kind of brush, this little fan brush color, it would be a very purple color, typically in the summer. And of course with this time of year, it kind of dulls down its color and everything, and becomes this much more of a kind of a beige or a tan gray. So yeah, basically I'm doing some images of that. I did level my tripod using the fishbowl here, this little knob that kind of, as you can see, kind of moves it around, and then you can adjust with the fishbowl to level it a lot easier than a traditional tripod. And then I actually did something weird where I had it level with the horizon and everything. But the thing is with these kind of more thin plants and stuff, is that obviously the branches are kind of more at an angle and more crooked and everything. So I kind of like use that to my advantage or whatever. And then I came back over to my tripod here, and I did with this Acrotech kind of like a pan swivel type of tripod head, and I adjusted it, and also my tripod collar mount on this 70-200, and made it more of a, as you can kind of see there, it's at an angle, so it's more tilted. And the reason why I did that basically is to there's always this kind of like ongoing, I guess, like discussion, a debate, I guess, of if for taking images with the horizon line level, sometimes it makes more sense, I think at least, to have it be crooked, as long as it makes your eyes, when you're viewing the image, appear to be actually level. That probably didn't make much sense, but basically, like, if the horizon could be crooked, but the rest of the image, or maybe like what you're trying to capture or the subject, would be actually level. And sometimes it just depends, of course. It's a case-by-case basis, really, at least I think, with images, whether the horizon should be tilted or not. But in the case of using this telephoto lens, where I'm zoomed in at about 125 millimeters or so, and then shooting this kind of crooked, like I said, bent over ironweed, it just made more sense, of course, instead of making it more of a jarring kind of perspective and composition, with having it tilted or bent over. So I merely followed where the plant itself is going in, where it was branching out and everything, and I took it the direction it was going in. Basically did that. I did 100th of a second, 100th of a second, There is a little bit of wind movement and sway going on right now. Once again, just with how dainty and small and kind of fragile these little branches are and everything. I did a aperture of f8. I think it's enough to almost get all of the entire the ironweed in focus and whatnot. And then I did an aperture of ISO 640, not aperture. Did that, and so worked out pretty well. Once again, you just kind of have to time it up right with really doing, minimizing the wind and the kind of blurring of it, because I want to get much more of a static, traditional shot where the entire plant is in focus. I'm not going for a camera movement shot, of course, or at least in this case. Alrighty, so I got my third composition here. I'm now on the south end of the, I guess you could say, trail, or just the private drive that goes through this conservation area, and back ends to the Little Miami River that's behind me here. You can't see it though. It's a little bit farther back, and this whole side of the preserve up to this border is actually closed right now to bow hunting. It's closed for wildlife management and hunting like that. So obviously I wouldn't even go off trail, of course, but it's basically just a straightaway back to where I started for the morning here, back this way. So, but anyways, this kind of stopped me in my tracks though. I kind of like the look of the arrangement of these leaves right here. As you can see, the really kind of patch right here of this kind of vibrant yellow colors. I said vibrant again. I need some more words to say, but I'm not awake yet, I guess. So I did a kind of like a cropped in composition with the medium telephoto lens once again. I've been using that pretty much all morning, exclusively, that is. And I love the arrangement of this kind of like drooped shape right here, and then just landing on this very orange at the furthest end of this branch. This one particular orange leaf right here behind me, just kind of situated onto this tree trunk right here. And I just thought that was a nice way to kind of have this kind of like almost like a leading line, a natural leading line that is. And it's just really cool to see this arrangement. As you can see, as it gets closer to the tree trunk or whatever, the leaves are still kind of more green. Obviously they're more dappled with kind of the yellows and browns as they dry up and decay and whatnot. But as it gets closer to the end of that branch, you can really see how it gets more of the golden yellow color, and then it just ends on that one particular furthest leaf right there into the orange. So I just thought that was really cool, kind of a neat thing, in my search here today for some leaves and color of autumn and fall. For settings, I did 1/50th of a second. It is a little bit shaky with the wind and everything, and that kind of makes it tough. But the luck of digital photography, of course, is I can take many exposures, as I did here, and hope for the best that one of them is sharp as can be, when I timed it up well with the wind and everything. Aperture of f9 because I don't need that much depth of field, because there is that tree trunk immediately afterward of the all this whole spread of leaves here. And then I did ISO 800, which seems like it's really high for an ISO number, but I wanted to get that brightness into, let in more light into the camera sensor, so that way I could have a higher shutter speed. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm zoomed in at once again around 130 millimeters. No filters once again, 2-second timer, and on a tripod. So being pretty consistent here today, of course with my lens choice, but also even the camera settings, that is, as I take these very distinct compositions throughout this whole reserve today. So it's been working out pretty well. Unless if I see something further down that way, I'm probably not going to take any images of the hills over there, unfortunately. But I've been liking these little more intimate and closed-in scenes that I've been doing. They've been pretty nice today. So, all right, everyone, that's going to be it for today's video. This is a really cool place. It's pretty small, but given the right time of year and right season, it can really pack a punch like it did today. And did some different leaves, just colors and all that kind of stuff, doing varying focal lengths in the medium telephoto range, as I did, and just really cool stuff that's really creative, artsy, abstractive in some ways, and it was just really fun to do that for this morning visit here. So yeah, I've been here a good few hours, not a very long trail at all, and it's pretty much flat with some gravel and grass the entire way through. And I did manage to do some of the tree line on the Kroger Hills to be able to find a spot, but I did pick apart a really nice, colorful kind of like grouping of trees, of course, way in the distance. And so hopefully those photos turned out well as well. And so got a lot of stuff here today, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This has been Kroger Hills State Reserve. Until next time, make sure to get out here. Thank you.